Okay, we're getting started, folks. Have a seat. Welcome to the Historic District Commission meeting of December 13th, 2023. The board's actions in these matters have been deemed to be quasi-judicial in nature. If any person believes any member of the board has a conflict of interest, that issue should be raised at this point or it will be deemed waived. I'd like to introduce everyone that is here right now. Our new alternate, Mr. Larry Booz, is not here. Dr. Dan Brown.
Good evening.
And Martin Ryan.
Good evening.
And Reagan Rudig.
Hello.
Vice Chair Margot Doring.
Good evening.
And my name is Jonathan Wyckoff. Assistant Planner Isaac Gilbo.
Good evening.
Rich Blaylock is not here. He's still on the other side of the world. Mr. Adams is not here. And Karen Bouffard is here.
Good evening.
Good evening. So we have, I guess I want to clear this up. We have any numbers of items to postpone. So I believe I can take the administrative approvals and the request for hearing and
That's
put them
correct.
all in together. So number 5, excuse me, 425 Islington Street. An administrative approval is a request to postpone. And then on the rehearings, request for rehearing of Michael B. Myers and Stephanie G. Taylor, owners for property at 700 Middle Street, is requested to postpone. Under public hearings, old business, petition of Joseph Cunningham, owner, and Jane Myers Vani, prospective buyer, for property located at 195 Washington Street, is a request to postpone, and there is no more. That's it.
All right, I move that we postpone those to next month.
All right, second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All righty. So I'm going to turn over what's left of our administrative approvals to Isaac.
So our first administrative approval, we will need to pull just a couple of these items out as we have a recusal on 95 Court Street, number 1, and number 2, 85 Daniel Street. So we'll take those two one at a time, vote on those, and then we'll continue the last 3. So the number 1 item, 95 Court Street, the applicant here is requesting to replace all of the windows on the home, the building rather. I was able to walk through the building a couple of weeks ago to see the condition of the windows. They are in fairly poor condition. Some do not operate fully, open or close. Some are kind of stuck in an open position. I was told that the windows had been replaced at some point throughout the years. There was an estimate perhaps around the 1950s. However, that may not be exactly the case. So just wanted to point that out. The applicant has requested to use the Harvey Majesty windows to replace, and they would like to use the same exact grille pattern that exists in all of the current windows now. So the first 2 floors are the 6/6, and then at the top level, it's a 3/3. There are a couple of windows on the back side of the building that are a single pane as well. And so here are a couple of photos from the Anthenium that just show that the windows continue the same pattern. And this would be the spec that the applicant is hoping to use.
Okay, certainly a lovely old house. Has everyone had a chance to look at the pictures of the windows? Does anyone have any opinion about the windows?
Well, I've looked at the pictures. Unfortunately, the photos of the windows from the interior of the 6/6 ones don't show me the jambs because the blinds are drawn, so they only show the bottom sash, and I can't tell if truly they're a mid-20th century replacement or if that's just lore. It looks like the third floor windows are historic. They don't have any, I can see those clearly. They're just sitting in the track. They don't have any weights or anything, which is very typical for these little upper floor 3/3 windows. So I'm torn as to whether or not we need to push for restoration of some of these older windows. This particular elevation, those do look pretty old. They do look like they're in really rough shape too. But I'm also questioning what the Harvey windows actually look like on the exterior, in terms of how they are installed, whether or not they have one of these tracks that stick out around it or not. I don't know if anybody has any experience with the Harvey
Certainly
line.
wish that David was here, but
Is anyone here to speak to the application?
No.
Because I have questions on, they have all the features there. I'm not sure what features they want. You know,
Right.
the color, the cladding, the screening. So it would have been nice to have a representative.
Yep. And sorry, I'm not sure of the quite intention of the color. I know screens, I did mention to the applicant that if they did want screens, that half screens would be stipulated for them. One thing I could suggest is that if we wanted the applicant to perhaps maybe take a window inventory, see if restoration is possible on some of these windows, maybe they could come back next month, give us a report on that, and then we can determine which windows may need to be restored versus which can be perhaps replaced
Yeah.
if that's the case.
I'd like to say that this happened 5-6 years ago for the, excuse me, the Baptist Church, the beautiful mansion that's on Middle Street for the Baptist Church, that they wanted to replace all the windows. And at that time, I went in and looked at them, and it was obvious that these were original 1810, 1820 windows. There was no sliding hardware visible. The windows were very thin, the muntins were thin, and they were well encased with paint. And they were certainly old windows. They weren't, 1950 windows. And so then I brought that back and told Nick at the time, and it went its way, and they decided to just replace the storm windows and have the windows all tightened up. I think what we need to do is I or Mr. Adams could go as a site walk and examine these windows, because, I'm
Smart.
looking at these and I'm thinking, these are not,
And John, I'd be happy to make an appointment with yourself, Mr. Adams, and the applicant to do just that.
I certainly would. It would either, because of the holiday upcoming, I would say either this coming week or after.
Sure.
But I think that we should continue this proposal.
I think it's important to do all the due diligence on this building because it's so focal in our district. And they've done such a great job with the clapboards and everything, it's really well maintained and do it right.
Ivan, I'd like to do that site walk too. I need to learn
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
from these
Right.
experts, elderly experts.
From the elderly. Well, we're closer to the 1820s. Okay, so let's have a motion to continue this.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
All right, all those in favor?
All right.
Opposed? All righty, moving on.
All right, our next administrative approval item would be number 285 Daniel Street. The applicant here is looking to replace or install HVAC equipment, 4 total condensers. Let me just get that pulled up 1 second. Oh, and excuse me, and there are a few other sort of just mechanical vents and just sort of mechanical equipment to point out on the side of the building as well. So here we can see this is a location for the condensers on either side of the garages. Here, the garage bays in the back. And then the venting and other mechanical equipment would just be, the meters would just be on the side of the building. Fairly straightforward. It looks like they do have some screening for those condensers, a wood slot screening, just to help sort of block the view as much as possible. And do we have any questions on this particular application?
I'm interested to see what the screened condensers will look like hung up on the building. So-
Yeah, I'm a little bit worried about that aesthetic, particularly if it looks as this picture does. Is it going to look like a bat house? You know, the bat house. Well, it might not be a bad look because then people would think, it's a bat house.
Big house.
But that would
Yeah,
be
a
made
little
of,
bit big.
it's usually made of the same material, right? Clapboard
Right.
and so on. But I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're proposing to have that painted to sort of match the siding and have it really blend in, or to keep it natural.
We could make that a stipulation that it at least be painted.
Yeah, they do say in the drawings.
They do.
This is,
Okay, all right.
Yep.
painted.
So,
I mean,
Yeah.
so I think that would maybe help that blend in a little bit more.
it's not that, you can't trick anybody to think that there's nothing behind it.
Yeah.
It's what it is.
But it will be more attractive than the unit itself.
Yes.
Right.
Definitely would be,
Right.
yeah.
And I'm assuming that they're hanging them on the wall because there's some kind of encumbrance if it's down on the ground. It's in the way of some pathway or something.
The stairs?
Yeah.
Right, the stairs, exactly. And then if I can sort of picture the building in my mind, I don't believe that there would be any clearance on the actual sides lowered down. So I think this is sort of the most out of view and sort of the kind of the best solution.
So could we have a motion then?
I move that we approve this administrative approval as presented.
Second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Karen?
No, she's recused.
Oh, you're out on this one, I'm sorry. And opposed. All right, so you have your
Great.
approval.
But now Karen can come back.
Now, come
Over
on.
here in Lonelyville.
Oh, come on over.
All right. So we'll continue the next three administrative approvals, just right down in a list, starting with number 3, 45 Market Street. There are a few changes. This project was before the HDC a while back. There are 3 sort of main changes that the applicant is requesting. The first is that they're asking for the approval of the rear chimney, the east chimney, to not be constructed, so they're hoping to take that part out of the original approval. The next portion is that they would like to talk about screening options for the windows, whether full or half would be appropriate. I don't know that we originally went over the window screening options at the original approval. And then there are a few changes to the storefront as well. And I don't know if we've got someone, I know the applicant wanted to potentially speak to some of these changes at the last meeting. Perfect.
All righty.
Hi, Shannon, how are you?
Good evening, Shannon Alther from TMS Architects.
Welcome.
Thank you for letting me continue from last week. I wasn't able to make the meeting, and I know you guys have had a chance to see this project a number of times. And I guess maybe to do a quick little history, the reason that we are asking for that rear or east chimney to be removed is that we originally left it in the application because we felt that we may need that for venting, and we thought that that would be a great way to get any venting from the project up and out the roof. We had to remove the chimneys because they weren't in good condition, and actually we had met with Nick out on site kind of midway through the project, and the concept was is that He was willing or liked the idea of removing the chimney or allowing us to take down the chimney and then rediscuss the chimneys later if we were willing to put cedar shingles on the market side roof, which we did. And then the note was, at that time, when he and I talked about it on site, is that we may need that east chimney. We weren't quite sure yet. We would come back if we could have that discussion. So we probably should have said at that time that we didn't need it, but we weren't 100% sure. So that's why we're back tonight. It is on the rear of the building. You don't see it except for a couple of little shots through one of the alleyways. So we're requesting to remove that. The next one is the windows. And to Isaac's point, this was, I think, one of the first or second applications that we reviewed right in the middle of COVID on Zoom. And I don't think we ever actually had the discussion about half screens or full screens. The windows, we did actually have to replace or change brands because of COVID timing, and we weren't able to get the windows that we originally intended. There are currently full screens on the project now. I know that half screens are important, and I'd be willing to buy half screens for the Market Street side if you guys are willing to accept that change. I know that the owner wasn't all that excited about not having screens at all, but I think I could weigh them to do half screens so that we can obviously see the pattern on the upper sash of the window. And then the last piece is the storefront. And I think there's part of the process is the scheduling of how the storefront worked. On the left image that you see at the upper left, the signboard was kind of shown as white. On the right-hand side of that upper page, the actual signboard is black too, and the sign is in process of being permitted through the city process. So when we looked at the photo in the lower left, it's showing more black, and the reason is that I was outlining what the storefront was, not necessarily the whole assembly. And I think that that layout that's there now actually looks really nice and fits really well with 4143, which is the adjacent building to the right. We did lose a little bit of some horizontal because of some sprinkler work that we had to do on the building. Sprinkler work that associated with 4547 is also ongoing in 4143. So we've been working with the city and the building inspector in terms of making those pieces work. So there was a little modification to the storefront, but I think the intent is similar to what we originally proposed. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Yes.
I don't have, I think, I really don't have problems with any of the pieces that we're talking about here. My only question is about the screens and whether or not you'd heard of or considered using flex screens.
I think in our original window selection, they did have the
Yeah.
flex screen, but then, and I apologize for not remembering which one we couldn't get or could get, but we ended up having to switch gears. I think we
Yeah.
ended up with Appella, and I don't know if they had a flex screen in that particular
Well, you
model.
can order flex screen from flexscreen.com.
Oh, I see what you mean. I got you.
But, and I've just recently kind of been introduced to these, but they're great. If you're having to go out and, specifically order half screens for these windows, it's just a different option because you can pop them in and out of the window. So in the winter, you can just take them out altogether and they're not there. So you can still see the full window on the outside. But I'm, in this particular location for the rear, just to be on record, I would be okay with the full screen simply because it's not visible anywhere else.
So are the flex screens, whoops, are they on the inside of the window?
No, they fit, they could be on the inside of the window, but then it's hard to open the sash. You measure it, it's a custom fit
Yes.
window, and you can just kind of squeeze them, they're bouncy, sort of. They're flexible, and so you can stick them, you measure it, you custom order it, and you stick it in on the
Just the bottom?
bottom.
Yeah. I guess the only advantage of the half screen is, on most of the windows, is they would slide up because a lot of people
It's true.
prefer to have their
Yes.
top.
Yeah, if you wanted to open the top. But we bought some for our house, and they're great because then they just store away, and they're very lightweight.
I would definitely be willing to look into the flex screens. The only thing that, since it is on Market Street, there's a lot of traffic. I'd want to make sure that those screens the half screens are solid and in
Yes,
place.
don't fall out.
So they don't fall out on
That would
anybody.
be important.
So I can just check that, and,
Absolutely.
if you guys are
Well-
accepting of half screens, then I'll do a little research on that.
And I think, I'm happy, I think that we could probably okay just any half screen.
Yeah. Should we make that a stipulation at this point?
Sure, I mean, that's what they're asking here, is it?
Half screens. So they're kind of a modern version of the ones you used to buy in the hardware store that slide open?
Yeah.
The wooden one,
But they're fit to the specific opening.
yeah. And they're made out of plastic instead of wood.
No, are they plastic? I think they're metal. They just are bendy.
Okay, I guess you could go on. I guess we're,
Okay. I think we're all
Thank
set.
you.
Thank you.
thank you very much.
All right, we'll move on to administrative approval, item number 4, 66 South Street. So the applicants for this application, let me scroll down, are proposing to remove the existing door that you can see here and to actually just take that out completely and to not have an entry door at all, and to replace the 2 windows just to the right of that. And the second part of the proposal is to remove this existing picture window and replace that with a single 36-inch French door that would then lead down to the third part of the application, would be a 36 by 36 granite landing with stairs that just come out from the new proposed French door. If I scroll back up, the applicants have given me a couple of options. They are willing to kind of either go with an Anderson or a Matthews Brothers window for the replacement that you see here. And then for the French door that would be replacing the picture window, gone with either an Anderson or a Therma-Tru door. And I do have a couple of photos of similar sample options that I'll throw up. So let me just get those. So here is a sample of the window style that they would propose. This is another option as well. Both brands of window can come in either a fiberglass or a wood, and they'd be open to whatever the board would deem the most, of course, appropriate. And then the door that they would propose in either the Anderson or the Therma-Tru would be this style here, and they would be amenable to either, I believe, the black or the white grill pattern. And that is what I have for the application. I do believe the applicants are here if there are any further questions or just any clarifying questions. And I do also believe that there was a request to perhaps use a James Hardy siding to redo part of that back addition that we saw.
So my only question was, not having a measuring stick, are the French doors fitting into this exact same opening? Are they, is it expanding to the side? No, okay, it has to come down and go sideways, so it would be helpful to
Right.
know exactly where this sits in the overall wall.
Sure.
Hi, my name is Lisa Amorosa. This is my husband, Peter. We're the applicants. It would be smaller than that window, which is why we were talking about the siding to kind of fill in around. The window it needs to be replaced. It's leaking and the sill is all damaged. The door that we're looking to remove, also that whole area has some damage to it, but mainly that's where the driveway is, you can see, and it's a shared driveway with the other condo owner, and there's not a lot of room there, and we were just hoping to make it so that we could park our car there and enter from the back.
My question is, we don't have any plan for the stairway that you're designing to come down? Is it just going to be basically follow what is there already?
So that stairway would be gone. We would
Right.
remove that door, and then we do have a plan. I think we had the plan of the granite steps
So
coming
there's
down.
there's just like one, there would be like one granite step. You wouldn't need stairs to come out of that door.
I don't,
You'd have a landing
Yeah.
that's 36 by 3,
Mm-hmm.
and then 2 stairs come down, all granite.
Okay, great.
And railing,
No railing?
no
I don't think
railing,
they'll-
railing,
they'll
no
need
railing.
I mean, if it's required, we would do it.
It's not required because of the rise.
Right.
But in the winter, this is New England, so if you want to go up granite stairs with no railings,
Right,
it's up to you.
yep.
You could always come back.
Okay.
Yeah, if you did want to go forward with a railing, or if it was, if you didn't need that for any reason, you could always just come back for an administrative approval such as this, and we can get that design approved.
Appreciate it.
It's up to you.
Where the door that you're taking away will just be clapboard then?
Correct.
And where are you putting the Hardy clapboard?
On those sides of the house, that where the doors are coming out and the new doors going in, because it has to be redone because of the change of opening.
How about the back that we don't see? Will you
It's not
reside that,
visible.
or-
Yeah, it's not visible from the street.
Yeah.
But will you be residing the back too?
I
Clarification.
mean, the whole house needs to be recited eventually, so in the next phase, we would probably do the whole backside and replace windows
So
at
it
that
comes
door.
down to
It
about
would be
there.
coming down to about there, approximately. If you look at the door on the other side, you get a better idea.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Is everybody set with this?
I think so. Are you looking for any more direction from us for any of the, you've got lots of options here.
Well, we didn't know, this is our first time doing this, and we just were looking at the website of what was considered possibly that would be approved, and we don't know what the availability of the products are, so that's why we gave a couple of options, and it will be based on approval and availability.
Yeah, and we'd love to have the site visit so we could just go over other things. This condo's in the back, it's not visible from the street, so we're not sure, what applies, what doesn't apply, and things like that.
Okay, I would think, that our site visits are kind of precious at this time.
Yeah.
If you had something, a project that you were submitting to us, and we might go look at it, but, like I was saying about the railing, you could come back at an administrative approval and say, well, we've decided to put iron rails or something going down. It's not so much going up, I think it's coming down the stairs, because granite, it ices up.
Right.
But that's it, thank you very much.
Yeah, and then I think, Isaac can help you figure out, but to make sure that the windows that you do choose have the simulated divided lights and all that
And the
stuff.
door.
And the door.
And just to make sure we're good with the options that they've sort of given us for the
Yeah.
windows and the door, if depending on the availability and.
I believe.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So that means we'll move on to our last administrative approval item on our list for this evening, and that's 182 Market Street. This proposal is to replace these two windows that are on the property. They are currently vinyl windows. The applicant has asked to replace those pretty much in kind with two double hung vinyl windows. And also, as you can see, the trim does need to be replaced. It is either rotting or has fallen off completely in certain spots. Their intention is to replace the trim as it exists, but just with new trim.
Wood.
And we could stipulate that
Yeah.
if you wanted. Yeah. So-
Before we go on, though, I just want to, on the last application, we almost skipped over screens. Half screen.
Yes. So if you would like to use half screens, excuse me, this is going back to 66 South Street. We would just stipulate that half screens are used for those window replacements, okay? Sorry about that. Back to 182 Market Street.
Sorry about that.
Nope, that's okay. Thank you, John. Fairly simple vinyl window replacement, not what we would always maybe typically want to see, but the building does have vinyl windows sort of on that entire side. So they were just hoping to be in keeping with what's currently there.
I think we spoke about this last month when we had the administrative approval on Islington Street coming back, also asking to replace vinyl with vinyl. And I think that, in my knowledge and memory, we've tried to sort of better the buildings as they go along and then get, vinyl windows get replaced, hopefully not again with vinyl, even though the siding is vinyl and everything. At some point, more of these vinyl windows will need to be replaced because they don't last forever. And so I would prefer to see even just, it can still be a 1/1 window, but a simple one that is clad, Fibrex or something that's a little bit more attractive than vinyl. Because it is somewhat visible as this
Sure.
We have
street
pictures
view
of the
shows.
front of this building or anything that shows more vinyl. I tend to disagree in exactly 180 degrees at this time. I wouldn't prefer vinyl windows, don't get me wrong. I'm willing to accept them because the other ones are all vinyl. I would prefer seeing 6/6. Muntins on these, and let's just say we're starting somewhere. But
I find that acceptable too, as sort of the precedent for replacement windows in the building, but.
So here is,
oh, we've got the front.
here's the front of the building.
Do we have that or is just?
No, that's live.
It's about as close as I can get. Those, I'm not sure.
Can you go up top?
Yep, there's one.
So those are 6/1,
6/1 on the top.
Yep.
Yep.
and they're vinyl.
And 6/1 here. And those do appear
But those,
to be vinyl, yes. Yep. And then I've got a couple
so
of
6/6 down there.
6/6 there, and then these are all the 1/1 doubles, and then looks like we have the 6/1 at the top on the side as well.
Yeah. I'm not insisting on anything. What does the board think?
And if I were the owner of this building, I would take the long view, which is that these are the first windows to fail, and they're going to continue to fail, and I would look to replace them with something that's more durable, more long-lasting, and make a plan for what direction am I going, and commit to that 6/6 or whatever it is. And work that way, as opposed to replacing these two vinyl windows only to have the next two fail and you never move forward. Instead, you keep replacing in kind and you keep having a hodgepodge of styles and materials. And I think we could say right now that the front of this, if this were the front of the house, putting vinyl windows in would not be something the board would support. So knowing that, I would think that the applicant would say, well, okay, this is the way the whole house is going to eventually end up, and why don't I just get started? But, that's me, and that's what I would encourage as the owner of an old home.
That's what I would do.
We don't have the applicant here, do we?
Or anyone else to speak to?
182
Okay.
Market Street.
In speaking with the applicant, who's not the owner of the property, from what I understand, there are several apartments in this building, and so I guess what has been happening in the past is when tenants sort of move out, they'll renovate the apartment, and so that's why we're kind of seeing a piecemeal with windows. They kind of do that once somebody comes out and they're going to have someone else come in. So, but I think that maybe we could continue this if that's the feeling. To next month, we could. I could have a conversation with the applicant to reach out to the homeowner and to maybe, come up with a better plan, a better window option, and to present that at the January meeting.
Yeah, I
If
think
that's-
let's set the standard here, if it's a rolling renovation replacement.
Okay. Yep, we can do that.
I would say that, that we should try to keep this rolling, though, keep this going as far as next month goes, and because there's no way that window doesn't leak.
I know.
I mean, that hole, I could put my boot
Yeah.
into that
Yeah.
hole. And I think there's probably an apartment downstairs, and I know what happens, to ceilings and such.
I would just request that they come with a cut sheet of the window they want to use.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so that is the end of the administrative approvals. I'll just quickly run through them and note out any stipulations, and then we can have a vote on those. So we'll start with number 3, 45 Market Street. That one, it looks like the only stipulation was that the applicant uses half screens of any kind that they see fit. Number 4, 66 South Street, also stipulated that they use half screens on the replacement windows, and that the applicants will just have a conversation with myself on the final choice for the French door and the windows. And then this is just a note, but if you do decide to do the railing, just let me know and we'll work on that. Number 6, 182 Market Street has been decided to be continued to next month, and we'll have a cut sheet and hopefully have a conversation with the applicant.
Good.
And if I missed anything, please let me know.
Make a motion to approve as Isaac has described.
Second?
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, very good. So now we're moving down to this certificate of approval extension. This is a petition of Robin and Cyrus Noble, owners for property located at 15 Mount Vernon Street, wherein permission is requested to allow a one-year extension of the certificate of approval originally granted on November 12th, 2022, for new construction to an existing structure. Extend the roof line of the existing house over the attached garage. As per plans on file in the planning department, said property is shown on Assessor Map 111 as Lot 33 and lies within General Residence B and the Historic Districts. This is pretty standard.
This is
We want to have a discussion?
This is the one that changed hands. It was approved, the house changed hands, they reapplied, and this has been extended. So the project is kind of 3 years old, but for these people, it's a one-year extension.
Right, yes, so this is, if I'm remembering this correctly, this would technically be the 5th time we have voted on this. So they got the original approval, a one-year extension, 2-year extension, then they came back for a whole new public hearing, which we added a few stipulations to that were new, and this is the one-year extension of that second public hearing. So a little confusing, but that's where we're at, so.
That's Mount Vernon Street. Nothing's been easy on that little street.
All right, I move that we approve the one-year extension.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now, so this one has been postponed. Excuse me, everybody, I'm trying to keep up.
Last one.
Public hearings, new business. Petition of Point of View Condominium Association owners for property located at 57 Salter Street, Unit 1, wherein permission is requested to raise and relocate the boathouse further inland and allow exterior renovations to the existing structure, add new stairs and railings to the boathouse, and new siding and installation of electric equipment on the Playhouse as per plans on file in the Planning Department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 102 as Lot 32-2, lies within waterfront, business, and historic districts. Who was here to present this?
Good evening, Chair and members of the Commission. My name's Jim Steinkraus with the firm Rath Young Pignatelli. I represent Margot Thompson and Ned Thompson, who are owners of Unit 1 at 57 Salter Street, known as 75 Salter Street, tax map 102, lot 32-2. I'm also joined tonight by Jennifer Ramsey with Soma Studios and Terrence Parker with Terra Firma. We're here tonight to seek approval by the Commission for the Thompsons to relocate their building landward approximately 7 feet 8 inches from over the Piscataqua River, so they can utilize the building as their primary residence. The Thompsons are also asked to add electrical equipment to the playhouse adjacent to their building for irrigation and outside lighting. Let me just give you a quick background of why we're here. The building was originally constructed in 1963 by the prior owner. The Thompsons purchased the property in 1990. In 1992, they added heat, water, sewer, and electrical services to this building and utilized it as an office. In 2018, the Thompsons sought a variance to relief to convert the building from an office use to a single-family use, and for setbacks from the front and side yard lot size. The Zoning Board of Adjustment granted that relief in December of 2018. The Thompsons received a building permit on August 20th, 2019, in addition to 2 wetlands permits for NIPDs, with New Hampshire DES. They subsequently sold Unit 2 and commenced renovations on Unit 1. In April 2021, during the middle of renovations, New Hampshire DES issued a stop work order because they determined that the conversion of the building, which cantilevered over the Piscataqua River by 5 feet 6 inches, violated the Wetlands Act and the Shoreland Protection Act. We subsequently petitioned the city for an urbanized shoreland exemption for the parcel in April 2022. It was subsequently granted. The city agreed, and New Hampshire DES granted that exemption on September 2nd, 2022. The exemption removes any obstacles regarding lot size or residential use of the building within 50 feet of the river. And after months of negotiations between my clients and New Hampshire DES, they reached a confidential settlement which requires them to relocate the building entirely over land. So the reason we're here tonight. No further permits are required from New Hampshire DES, as the work will be authorized by a New Hampshire DES restoration approval. On June 27th, 2023, our clients sought variance relief from the Zoning Board of Adjustments to relocate the building landward, and relief was granted on July 3rd, 2023. We are before you today to request approval to relocate the building, add stairs and railings, to connect to the existing railings and walkways, and add electrical equipment to the playhouse. We believe the proposed changes are consistent with the previously approved plans in 2019 by this board and the city. I would also note that the building's being raised approximately 2 feet to meet the resiliency requirements of the city to protect against the effects of future climate adaptation or change. There's no planned expansion of any parking or expansion of the building itself. It's simply being relocated. I'll now defer to Ms. Ramsey and Mr. Parker for the technical aspects of the project, and Mr. McNally from Summit Design Engineering is also available to answer any questions the board might have. Thank you.
Good evening, Jennifer Ramsey with Soma Studios. Thank you. Did a great job explaining why we're here. As he mentioned, we are raising the building and moving it back landward. And so in order to achieve this and still have the building connected to the ground, we have had to add landscape elements to get from the side stair down to the grade, as well as the entry stoop that has been expanded by way of one landscape element that Terrence can speak to. The water side of the building, so these are your existing photos. Now that the house is raised, the back deck has been raised with it, so we have a couple stairs that descend from the deck down to the dock. There's the plan views. You can see the before and after. Nothing really different here aside from in the front of the building. You'll see the landscape element, that terraced patio, and you will see the new steps on the top of the page, which is to the back, that descends down to the dock, which remains. If you want to go to the next page, Isaac, thank you. So here's, these read left to right. existing and proposed. So you can see the building has been raised up to 2 feet, that was previously mentioned. As a result, we have foundation, which we have basically moved the mud board down and sided, so the presentation remains the same. And you'll see on the left-hand side of the proposed west elevation there, the new landscape elements. The railings we're proposing will match the railings that were previously approved. Terrence can speak about the materials of the terrace and the wall that supports it. We are moving, I believe, the mailbox from the left-hand side of the door to the right, so that it's more fluid motion if you're coming down that side stair and exiting the building. So you'll see a couple of those elements there. There's also a note on the west elevation proposed on the right-hand side. There's some reference to our vent. These elevations and the photos show all of the work to date, with the exception of that vent has not yet been installed, but it was part of our previous HGC application, and the BOA also reviewed that location. So though it's not there, it's already been approved, and we're just showing it and noting it as such. And then on the back or the water side, again, you'll see the old pier structure that would exist today, and then on the right-hand side is the new pier system to support that raised deck. And we do have our engineer here. He can speak to aspects of that, since that is visually a different appearance that would only be seen from the water. Also on this page is that little side building that we wanted to, in just full transparency and good faith, make reference to. While this building was being renovated for single use, similar attributes were being done to the playhouse. We were re-siding it to match the boathouse. There's a door, there's a light fixture that matches the ones at the boathouse. There is an outlet, and then, as was mentioned, there is a mechanical box that's built out on the long view, the west elevation there, and that's going to house irrigation and lighting systems for the yard. Again, this was part of what was happening, but we just wanted to make reference because it hasn't been completed, so you'll see what's planned for that. And I think the next sheet is the 2 side views. So here it's more evident what's actually happening from the south. You can see as it exists, the sloping down to the water, and now the building is taller. So again, we have a foundation. And as the building is pulled back, you'll see the foundation goes all the way to the extent of the home, versus currently a portion of the home floats out over the water. So this is a healthier arrangement altogether. And again, we have new pier structure there on the proposed south side, which we can speak toward. And then similarly, this must be the north elevation below there, yes. So again, this whole building has moved up, so the entry approach and sequence has been adjusted to accommodate that. But everything that you're seeing there today, and you will see, remains the same, with the exception of just there's an elevated terrace on the front of the building to get you down to grade. I think that concludes the changes really are just to get us from the house down to the ground. That's what we're doing.
So, questions, comments?
Just clarifying that the back deck is now a little bit deeper because it still lines up with the dock?
The back deck is the same size. It's moved back with the house. So you will get, what would have been perceived as more deck now, because the dock and the deck are kind of one and the same, the deck has been moved up, so it is going to be perceived as a smaller space separate from the dock. But that depth has traveled backwards with the house as well. Does that make sense?
So the square footage has not changed. It's just changing.
Right. The square footage, we were obligated to stay with a specific square footage, which is referenced, I believe, on the front sheet, which is the landscape plan, which is also the civil plan that was approved at the BOA. So there should be a note on there that we were allowed by DES, I think it's 612 square feet of deck space to travel back with the house, and that's what we have. So what the X and Y dimensions are to get that 612 aligns with the width of the house.
Yes.
The foundation, what will we be doing for a foundation?
It's a standard concrete foundation. Do you want to speak any more to that?
Chairman, committee members, I'm Steve McNally with Summit Engineering. We designed a concrete foundation with cantilevered walls in order to support the building. And the reason for that is that there are some boundary conditions that we have to satisfy. One of them is that we have to be 4 feet below the sediment level according to the zoning ordinance for City of Portsmouth. The other is that we don't have any geotechnical data in this vicinity, So we are making a generalized assumption on the bearing capacity of the sediments, and which is pretty consistent with what I've been seeing before on the waterfront, which is around 1,500 pounds per square foot. Based on that, we've used a mat slab foundation in order to spread that load out and stay down to that 1,500 square feet, and we've cantilevered the walls up with reinforcing from that mat in order to form the walls to the sides.
Okay.
That answer your questions?
Yes, very interesting.
How about for flooding? That foundation will handle the flooding too?
Yes, sir.
Is it just a slab foundation?
It's a mat slab foundation at
Yeah.
the bottom,
Okay.
cantilevered walls that are tied to that mat slab going up to the top, and then a floor slab at the top with the, where the house will sit on.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a question
Yes.
about the foundations in terms of what you'll see. I'm looking at the photo on the upper left has the lovely stone foundation, and so I don't know, and Jennifer, I knew that you said something about bringing the clapboards all the way down, but that would seem like a lot of clapboarding all the way down. So I don't know if there's any part of the foundation that's still going to be
You're going to
visible?
see, yes, we have moved the mudboard down equally on all sides where it makes sense, so it's not that it's stepping.
Yeah.
So on the side here that is the south elevation, you are going to see standard concrete foundation, smooth surface that comes out to the end of the building with the building moved back. Some of this, I'm going to call it hard scrabble, and they have a better word for it. The rocks and whatnot that are in the foreground would remain perceivably because they're nearly part of the adjacent property at that point.
Correct.
Yeah, so you're seeing some things in the foreground that are making it look, I think, a little more organic
Okay.
today, which would stay.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else? Little Cottage, who's our Little Cottage expert here? Any questions?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't have any questions.
I think.
So
I just-
I'm going to
I'll-
let the public speak on this. If anybody in the public would like to speak on this particular proposal, please come up and give your name and address.
Yeah, good evening. My name's Glenn Normando. I live at 15 Pickering Ave and own the South End Yacht Club down there, which is on that same property. If I go out on my docks or landings, I can look across and see Ned and Margot's place, no problem. And I just want to support this application. I've been living there for somewhere around 40-plus years now, and I've rarely seen two people go through more hell on an application than this one, and I would strongly support approval of this application. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You must be an expert at getting through the DES.
I've been through, well, for 20 years I ran a marine construction company in town here, which I sold in 2009. And I've been through the mill. We built over 600 projects in those 20 years, most of which, probably 90% of them, which I permitted. And so a lot of this whole mess they're in is because somebody there didn't pay attention and give an approval that if they, had made all these adjustments 3 or 4 years ago, we would have been in a better, they would have been in a better place now. So it's just one of those administrative things. And, but it is what it is. And I just think that everyone that's on the water down there is going to be doing a lot of this in the future. I had about this time a year ago, I had 6 inches of seawater in the club. We had a storm there 2 weeks before Christmas.
Oh, that was a beaut.
That was a beaut. It was the highest I've ever seen it since we owned the property since 1975. And unfortunately, I currently don't have the multi-millions to lift that building. But, you know, in my case, just to meet current FEMA code, that building would have to rise close to 4 feet, which I'm sure will create all sorts of nightmares for you folks. But that's, you know, the current code is no mechanicals, nothing can be below 2 feet above 100-year flood. In that building, the floor is maybe 18 inches below 100-year flood. Similar to Francesca's next door, at Gino's, Pete's Shed, all those buildings, if we're going to save them, is going to require a complete sort of rebuild of the south end, and I hope you're all ready for it.
Well, and it's not just us, it's the building inspection department. We all have to kind of work together and on some of these code issues and things as far as stairs, et cetera.
There's just going to be a lot to do to be able to keep things, you know, and even then, a century from now, it may not even matter if it goes up 20 feet, you know.
Thank you very much, Mr. Norman.
Okay, thank you. Just making you all feel good for it.
Cheery outlook.
Okay, so if that's it, I'm going to close. Oh, I'm sorry.
Marcia McCormick, 53 Salter Street, and I have no problem with the way, you know, that. I've been very upset about, you know, moving the building forward and the whole process that was involved in doing that. I guess my question is, and I don't know whether you can answer it, because I'm not sure whether this is waterfront business now or whether it's residential. I was looking through the papers at City Hall, and the attorney for the Thompsons said that if the building stayed the way it is, it could be used as some sort of a venue or office that would generate more traffic on the street, which, as you know, is a dead-end street, and you can't turn, there's no place to turn around. So if that's true, that implies that if the building stayed where it was, it would be waterfront business. You see what I'm saying? And if it was moved back, it would be residential. Am I?
The zone of the property wouldn't change whether that structure was moved, you know, to or from. That whole property is waterfront business. You are correct in that zoning designation. But the structure itself, that wouldn't change the use of the structure moving it. It would depend on what's allowable by that particular zone, and we'd have to look at our zoning regulations
Right.
to see, you know, in that waterfront business, would this be something in the future that could be used as an
That's a
office
good-
again?
that's what I wanna know. I
So,
mean-
I don't have that regulation right in front of me right now, but you know, that's something that I'd be happy, if you wanted to reach out to me, send me an email, I'd be happy to
Yeah.
look into that for you and
I think it's
clarify
important
that.
to, you know, looking long-term at this. I mean, we're all not going to be around forever. What could happen, this is a commercial dock that they've got there. Could they have short-term rentals? You know, I mean, I'm sorry, but I've lived through absolute worst that waterfront business has to offer down there in the 70s. So, you know, I know that won't happen again, but still, other things can happen and a lot of traffic, and I don't know. Sorry.
Sure.
Be so paranoid, but you know, I've been really burnt by waterfront business.
Is this more of a planning board?
It potentially more of a planning board, a board of adjustment issue, depending on use and things like that. So, you know, like I said, we can certainly,
Yeah.
you know, if you want to reach out, we can have a conversation, and happy to get a few other planners involved, you know,
Good.
with their expertise, with different boards if need be for you, okay?
Thank you.
Sure.
Because it's important. This is, you know, this is significant change, and
Right.
thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
paying attention. Thank you. All righty.
me to respond to this?
Oh, certainly, yes.
So it is zoned waterfront business district. In 2018, the Thompsons applied for relief and a change of use to residential. So it is authorized as residential. The only problem is under New Hampshire DS, under the wetlands laws, you can't have a residential building cantilevered over water. So the idea is that if the approvals weren't granted, it could never be used as a residential property, and the only other use would be commercial property. They'd probably have to get another zoning variance to change it back, right? So as of right now, the idea here is to seek approval so that the building can get relocated back and used as a residential property, consistent with the zoning board decision in 2018. Right, thank you.
So inversely, just one question.
Sure.
Inversely, if it is moved 5 feet back, it doesn't eliminate it from being commercial property. It just makes it a residential
Right.
use.
Well, it was changed to a residential use in 2018.
Right, but I'm saying down the road, just out of curiosity.
Yeah, down the road, I think if they wanted to change it, they'd have to go back for another variance change to change the use to waterfront business, which doesn't sound like it'd be very compatible, the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Great.
Any other
Thank you.
questions? Well, luckily, we've got people in the neighborhood that do pay attention. So I'm going to close this public hearing, and I'm looking for some kind of motion.
I'll make a motion to approve this as presented.
I'll second it.
First of all, I just want to say that, yes, we've seen this project many times. It's been back before us. You guys have had a long journey with this little building. And like Mr. Normando said, these types of issues are going to come to us more and more frequently. We've already seen a couple where the buildings need to be raised up, moved back, something. So I think this is very well done. It's very sensitively done. There's really very little that's going to change about it. It's very scenic, kind of cantilevered over the water, but moving it back is certainly not going to really impact the character of this little building. So, all that being said, I think this does have obviously conservation and enhancement of property values, being able to, for real, use it as a residence. And it has a relation to historic and architectural value of the existing structure, which is being moved.
All righty, that's good. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? You have your permission.
Do you have anything else?
2022.
We have, yes, you are right. We have officially run out of 2023 items.
So this is a
We'll
big
revisit
announcement.
everything else
Yeah.
on January 3rd.
We've run out of stuff for this year.
I would just like to publicly say, just in case Mr. Adams is watching on TV, to thank you
We know
very
he is.
much for these beautiful bowls and the treats. I was delighted last year when we got one, and I'm delighted again to get another one of his handmade.
The next thing is a plate.
Yes, thank you.
And you notice how.
And if he is watching, I will make sure anyone
His
who's not
technique.
here gets theirs. I'll put those in my office and distribute those next
Oh.
month.
And how his technique has advanced. Mm-hmm. These are yes, these are much thinner at the bottom. The whole profile is much slimmer than the ones from before. They were rather heavy at the bottom, so he has clearly honed his craft.
Yes, I like the Piscataqua Valley.
I was just, that's very nice. Yeah.
Well, there's a good book out there that I'm sure
Lovely.
David has called The Drowned Valley. And it's essentially about Newmarket, and Portsmouth, and Durham.
Yeah.
Because that's what we are, as Reagan will tell you.
You know that?
Do we?
You need a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
I think we wanted to maybe just have a
Pass those
quick
around.
little discussion. I do just have everyone's term
Limits?
end of dates limits exactly. The only one to really be concerned about is Rich, which he's not here right now, but that'll be 31/23. The only other ones we need to worry about, Dan, you are going to be up June 1st, 2024. So, not for a
Should
while.
we be worried? I don't think we should worry about you.
Everyone else except for David is June 1st, 2025. He is June 1st, 2026. So everyone else is
So we have a
set.
big, we have a big clump.
Right.
And normally, don't we try to stagger things a little bit so we don't have a possible big turnover?
It just
it-
comes and goes,
No control.
depending on
Right,
when
so
the
it depends on when
applications-
people leave, because if my memory serves me correctly, when somebody leaves when their term is still open, whoever comes on is technically just finishing, I believe, that term out, and then, so even if someone leaves, you know, we still kind of still keep that same term date, so.
Yeah, so somewhere
It's
along the way, it must have gotten off, because I
Yeah.
believe the rules say that you're supposed to have like 2 people or 3 people come off on a regular basis, so you don't have that big clump. So something must have gone a little askew.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether we should think about trying to write that a little bit. And the only reason I'm thinking is that you could have a whole bunch of people to say, okay, my term's up and I'm done, and then all of a sudden you have a large number of open seats and you can't function.
Right.
Because you
About
can't
the
make
only
somebody
thing-
stay.
The only thing I could think of would be to have somebody reapply 3 months before, stagger it 3 months or whatever. For instance, Dan would, make his application for renewal for March or something. And it's really no difference for you. It's, it's just making out your paperwork in advance. And then, get them to agree that they're going to approve it at that time. That's about the only thing we can do, because otherwise it's up to the city council.
That's the
Or
day
request a
that
shorter
approves
term.
it, the city council approves it?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, somebody will, bring you up, the mayor will bring you up, and then they vote on it. Simple.
Yeah,
She's got, definitely, Margot's got a good point here. We could,
Well, it's
I just don't know though
we
if.
could sink the whole HDC in just a year.
It's something that I think to talk about with the mayor, probably.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not sure if submitting the request early, because I think you would be
No.
ending your one term and then just,
Yeah.
so I don't know that getting the request in would change that, but we'll talk about that particular.
You'll have to look at the ordinance.
Yes, yeah, we'll look at our rules and all of that. and
Yeah, because
figure
I
that
think
out.
it would
Yeah,
be a simple
yeah.
matter for the city council to accept the fact it wouldn't actually even have to change the ordinance, because I don't.
Sure, I see, I see what you're saying.
I don't think
Yeah.
it's on the ordinance.
Yeah,
It just says that, they must be voted on, and, so.
And then just also a friendly reminder that we will be doing elections
Yeah.
for beginning of January, so.
I'm getting my
If
posters.
anybody wants, to run, and I'll send out an email as well, probably, tomorrow or Friday, just to remind everyone who's not here. If you'd like to throw your hat in the ring for either chair or vice chair, just make sure that you let that be known, and we will, of course, hear from everyone who wants to, maybe take a stab at that position, and then we'll have our vote.
John, are you
I
planning?
did notice something. I did notice in Robert's rules that we're not doing it correctly per Robert's rules. We're typically just nominating, the first person nominated is typically the person elected. Robert's rules calls for the nomination of multiple members. And then I would think you'd have to vote at that point if you had more than one nominations. So I would like us to probably look at that a little closer come January.
Sure.
We also generally don't have a whole lot of discussion on what,
It's a suggestion.
we don't have a lot of discussion about what a person who might be interested in the position feels they bring to the position. There's sort of a nomination and then people vote, but there's little discussion on, well, I think I would be a good candidate because I'd like to do this, or I'd like to achieve this, or I think I bring this to the to the table. So I like your suggestion, Martin, that we,
I think that would be a great idea.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
which raises my question is, do we have to have the election at the beginning where then everything, all the people who are waiting to do their business have to wait for that to happen? Or is it possible for John as the current chair to chair that meeting, and then we have an opportunity to have a discussion where we're not worried about holding up process?
Typically in the past, we've always done it at the beginning. I don't see why we couldn't move that to the end. I think, Margot, I think that's a valid point. You know, I don't know that we necessarily want to be debating our positions in front of everyone who's going to be attending the meeting. I think that can be a little awkward maybe, and it might make some people not want to share. So I think maybe having that as an other business
I agree
or
with that.
at the end
I
of the
agree.
meeting.
Yes, because people are here sometimes with architects and attorneys, and they're all on the clock. So I don't really think they
Yeah.
want to listen to our
Yeah, and not saying that we would take,
administrative tasks.
you know, all night to do that, but, you know, in the event that it took more than 15, 20 minutes, I think that's something we should probably move to the end. I also think if should there be any voting, switching up of things that might cause some bad feelings for the rest of the meeting, we may want to avoid that.
Throwing our rocks.
Yeah, exactly.
Off the floor.
The rocks are not allowed at next month's meeting.
Well, we did have, it was many years ago, but we did have somebody walk off.
So,
That was before your time.
so,
Before
just,
That was my very first meeting.
It was your very first meeting. So it was only Reagan and I remember it. So I'm looking for, we got the motion, didn't we?
Did you want to do anything with this
I mean, we
renewable
did,
energy policy? I think you're absolutely right. The only thing that
we did go
pertains to
over
us
it.
is recommendation 54.
Yeah. 54 was definitely
Try
the
to
big one
adopt,
as far as we're
consider
concerned.
adopting that allows more visible.
There were
Yeah.
a lot more pokes at us about things like the car chargers and such, you know.
Yeah.
And car chargers they're such a small item that, they're like, it's like, we don't vote on mailboxes. And there's some pretty big, ugly mailboxes. Where the future is coming up, we're in the future right now, but my understanding, the next thing is they're going to get rid of the cables altogether, and it's going to be sort of a Wi-Fi charging, just like your electric toothbrush, just like you charge your phone in your car. You will be able to drive your car next to your charger, and it will charge up.
I think the other thing to consider is that solar panels is just one avenue or one technique to try to be more green or renewable energy and so on. But there are a lot of other things that we're already doing that aren't getting credit for that. Things like supporting replacement windows and insulation and a lot of building materials that we might be able to advocate for that help with energy efficiency, renewable, using less natural resources or whatever it is. I think things are focusing on this is the end-all and be-all of how to prevent sea change, and that's not the case. If you put a better, more efficient heating plant in your house, you might make more of a difference to the climate than mining lithium and putting batteries on your roof. So I don't think we should allow things to focus in on just one issue alone, and recognize that they're
windmills.
and since just in the last year, the community power program has made it an option for people to choose 100% renewable energy
Right.
in choosing how they pay for their electricity,
Right.
which I would imagine if you're looking at tens of thousands of dollars to put solar panels on your roof to achieve the same thing when you could just pay a little bit more to Eversource.
right.
I think that's a win-win. You're getting renewable energy, and you're not spending tens of thousands of dollars and fighting with the Historic District Commission or some other zoning-related board to put panels on your roof. Now, it's up to the homeowner, that's their decision on which direction they want to go, but I'd hate to have people get focused on just one thing and not consider that there are other ways to achieve the same issue.
Sure.
Have we voted on?
No, I think
I have
we.
one last question.
One last question, okay.
Do you know what percentage, area-wise, is the Historic Commission compared to town, the whole town?
Oh, that's a
In the district?
that's a good question.
nice
Yeah,
question.
it's
I
not.
mean, they're fighting us for solar, we're at
Well,
5%?
The whole
10%?
problem.
right. Yeah, it's not a majorly significant portion.
No, but it's
Well,
But
it
it,
is.
but it
It's the
it
downtown.
comprises a significant part of Portsmouth, I guess, if you will. So
Population based.
And it's number of buildings versus square footage. But I think wasn't there a survey on the number of buildings in the historic district or in the downtown that faced the right way, and it was not high.
you mean for
I've never seen that.
No?
for
Okay.
solar
The one
installation.
thing I would like to say, it was 10 years ago with Nick that he brought Islington Street and Middle Street into the fold. They were never part of the historic district.
Nick didn't do that.
Yes, he did.
No,
Yeah, he did.
The
Nick
historic-
was here. Yeah.
I think it was done before that. I thought
No,
in
it
the-
wasn't. That was the corridors.
It was the extension down. It
Don't make
was-
me get out my minutes.
Yeah, it was
I know
around,
that
it
you
was
were on
around 2008 because I owned the Merton Hill Inn at the time, which I bought in '04.
Maybe it was just when, was it
Extend-
one of his
extended
first
down.
things that he did?
That was one of the things that he was really much into, and he wanted to bring in South Street and, do a lot with
Lincoln.
Lincoln Avenue and all that,
Yeah.
and then realizing, actually, we got a lot of kickback on Richards Avenue, and so.
Well, Middle Street is still one of the things that I would like to see fixed, because the corridor lines are just not how you draw boundaries in a historic district, because it creates all kinds of confusions. It should be done like he did it with Islington Street, where you just take in the parcels of all the buildings that front Islington Street. If you want to see the visual corridor, you take maybe one property in on the side streets, but, all this, where the line cuts into the corner of the house, does it come in or not? I mean, that's just
There's a
not,
couple of those, hasn't there?
yeah. And it's a simple thing that we should probably, that I've been wanting to fix for a long time.
Yeah.
So,
But in the same instance, the solar panels on that house, on the corner of Islington Street and Aldridge, that is a house that, is not really, you think of as being in the historic district. You're coming into town, you're driving 35 miles an hour, and you're going right in here. And, we know it's a historic district, but I don't think it's that important, personally myself. But I don't want to get into that because that's a voting situation.
yeah. Well, I don't agree. I think that the Middle Street corridor is a very important part of our historic district.
I agree. Start
Anybody
plucking
else?
properties out, I think that's problematic.
No, okay, so we have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
All right,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
All righty.